let's talk about this, you all. So, I'm not sure if you're familiar or have heard the news. Colorado Springs has a new mayor. So, first and foremost, congratulations to Yemi Mobolade on his successful victory to become the next mayor of Colorado Springs. Now, why is this kind of a big news story in essence? Well, a couple of reasons. Colorado Springs has been conservative for decades. Decades upon decades upon decades. For 45 years, they've only elected Republican mayors. And the city council is dominated by Republicans. There used to not be any Democrats on the city council in Colorado Springs. I think now they might have about 2 or 3. And this is their first non-Republican mayor in 45 years. So it's a big deal. Because remember, many pundits were all telling us about this red wave that was coming for the midterms in 2022. The Republicans were just going to clean up everything. It was going to be a complete trouncing. And we saw the Democrats maintain the Senate, albeit narrowly, expand on their majority, and whilst the Republicans took control of the House of Representatives, it was by the same margin as the Democrats who previously controlled the House of Representatives. Something like a 5-seat majority. So, this red wave didn't materialize in 2022. And you would think all the elections, at least up until the presidential one in 24, would be resounding wins, especially in conservative strongholds such as Colorado Springs. But that wasn't the case. An independent, the first African American to ever be elected mayor of Colorado Springs. So this is kind of a big deal. Now, I didn't keep too close tabs on the race, to be honest with you. Colorado is one of our neighbors, but we're closer to California and Oregon, to be honest with you. Don't get me wrong, I love Denver. We love Colorado in general. But it's Colorado. So I didn't keep too close tabs, is what I'm telling you. But the folks on the ground, well, they were keeping a lot of close tabs. And the race, whilst it remained civil, it did get ugly and negative. You had the Republican candidate called the independent candidate Yemi a socialist. Now, Yemi is not a socialist, you all. Many of the same issues and policies both were in agreement on. The only thing that was really different concerning these two candidates was the issue of public safety. That's very important. You know how you've been hearing all in the news about Chicago, New York City, Los Angeles, Detroit, Baltimore, and how violent and crime-ridden those cities are? You hadn't been hearing, although now you probably will start hearing, but you hadn't been hearing about the issues that Colorado Springs was having. 2022, the highest level of homicides since 1985. 54 or 55 homicides in 2022 alone in Colorado Springs. And yet, Fox News, who always wants to talk about the homicide rate in Chicago. Now, you know Chicago is a city of millions of people. Colorado Springs, I think, is under a 500,000. So to have 55 homicides in 1 year in a city that's been controlled by the Republicans for 45 years, well, it wouldn't fit their narrative. That's why they stayed silent about it. But the residents and citizens of Colorado Springs knew what was going on. So, public safety. How is it that national Republicans can tell you about all the problems happening in New York City, from the unhoused community, which is very prevalent and large in Colorado Springs? You know, they have a lot of nonprofits, churches, and organizations that work with the unhoused. And they do a lot of great work, you all. Don't get me wrong. They really do. But they talk on a national level as though unhoused people are only a problem or only a reality in New York City, in San Francisco, in Los Angeles, Democrat-run cities. But they always fail to mention that in Republican-run cities, like Colorado Springs, Jacksonville, Florida, there's huge populations of unhoused people. Throughout the state of Tennessee, huge population of unhoused people. Yeah. So, Yemi was running and saying, according to what people were telling me, Yemi was saying, look, this Republican establishment that's been running the show for 45 years, they don't listen to any diverse opinions, perspectives. They only do what they want to do. They don't believe in equity and inclusion and in diversity. Now, the Republicans were saying, of course we believe in diversity, equity, and inclusion. We do X, Y, and Z. But in reality, the citizens of Colorado Springs, the majority, they knew that wasn't true. They knew it was all bullshit. Yeah, they did. Now, Mayor-elect Yemi Mobolade has got to be very careful here. He's got to be very, very careful. Because Colorado Springs has had issues for a long time. And what they'll try to do is all of the issues that Colorado Springs, especially recently with the violence and crime, they'll lay that all on his doorstep. Yeah, you'll start hearing about stories, and it'll be like, Colorado Springs is going downhill now that the Republicans are in control. They won't tell you about any of the past stuff that was happening. Yeah, this just happens all the time. All the time. And he's got to be ready for that type of setup. Because I guarantee you that's what's in store. Yeah, all the problems of Colorado Springs now lay at his feet. And they're going to present it to all of us who are unaware of what those problems are, as this is a brand new occurrence. When in fact we have the data saying that it's been going on under Republican leadership. So Mayor-elect Yemi Mobolade, I'm doing him a favor by getting it all out there to people who aren't residents and aren't citizens of Colorado Springs, to let them know how horrible the Republican mismanagement has been, how they've ignored average, everyday citizens and only listened to an extreme handful of people. Yeah, that's really what's been going on. They never talk about the violent statistics in Republican-run cities, townships, municipalities. They never talk about the unhoused people in Republican cities, towns, municipalities. Somehow homicides and unhoused people are only a big city issue. Yes, they do become an even larger big city issue. This is truthful and factual, but I'll tell you how. A lot of times folks who live in small towns who are unhoused are forced to go into the big cities. Yeah, they force them out of their small towns. They're like, we're not going to provide you any resources. We'll starve you out. So you have to go to Denver. Now, Colorado Springs, I will admit, is different. They do offer resources. But that's because the state of Colorado offers a lot of resources to those nonprofits to provide for their citizens in their community the way it should be. You know, people shouldn't have to come from Idaho to get services in Oregon and Washington simply because the state of Idaho doesn't want to provide it, because they're undesirables in their state. So Idahoans come and use our healthcare services, our charitable services, because Idaho doesn't want to provide it. Yeah, that happens all the time. A lot of unhoused people in Los Angeles are not originally from Los Angeles. They weren't born and raised in Los Angeles. You know, they're famous for talking about Skid Row in Los Angeles. If some of those folks are lucid and cognitive innocent and aware, ask them simply where they were born and raised. I guarantee you, at least 5 out of 10 of them, half, won't have been born in Los Angeles. Yeah, they come from other states. Tennessee, Kentucky, Pennsylvania, Mississippi, Florida, Texas, New Jersey. People go where they'll be provided resources. Yeah. So that's why a lot of bigger cities have a huge unhoused population. Because southern states, the Bible Belt, they kick them out. This is a fact. I've worked with so many folks, you all, in the past, who were not originally from this state. And they say the reason they come to this state is because it's a sanctuary. The city specifically is a sanctuary city. They say you're welcoming of refugees. You're welcoming of migrants. You're welcoming of the unhoused. Yeah. Now, of course, this puts a strain on any budget. We don't get any more money. I want people to understand this because this is very important. The reason a lot of places don't want to be sanctuary cities is because it's not like that classification brings you more money from the government. No. You still have to provide for the citizens and plus all of the new individuals who come to your city with the same budget. So when conservatives say, look at the sanctuary cities, and they're not taking care of the citizens who already live in the cities, well, that's because most of the time the federal government wants to starve us out. Yeah. You know, Washington, under the previous administration, we didn't receive the adequate farm aid that we were supposed to receive. Yeah. And that was done on purpose. Apparently we were on a list. We were the naughty kids. And we didn't get any money from the federal government because the federal government didn't like our way of doing things. So you're on the naughty list and you don't get any money. But at the same time, you still have to be welcoming of all the unhoused people from Kentucky, Tennessee, Alabama, the undesirables of the conservative states, the Bible Belt, kicking its own people out. So they're not even a sanctuary for their own citizens, let alone migrants. Yeah, that's a fact. This election, y'all, in Colorado Springs, 45 years of Republican control. One can say it led to severe crime and violence. lawlessness in Colorado Springs. The FBI said that was the highest homicide rate since 1985 in 2022. And you didn't hear nothing about it on Fox News, CNN, MSNBC, none of them. Everybody will talk about Chicago now. Without prodding conservatives. You name the conservative commentator. Their go-to line is Chicago. Look at what the Democrats and the mayor and the city is allowing in Chicago. And they never mention what's happening in their states, in their cities, their towns. Yeah, it's easy to point the finger at somebody else because you don't like their policies. But when we come and do an inspection of your town, your city, screw your policies. You know what I think about that. When we get down to the nitty-gritty, do you have unhoused people just like New York City? Do you have homicides on a higher rate per capita than New York City and Chicago? When we get down to the nitty-gritty data, it's the same shit. And even worse in most cases. Because they don't have millions of citizens. They're not sanctuary cities. So they have everything going for them that they say they're against. Yet they have the same problems equal to, or in many cases worse. That's why you all have to get away from this Democrat-Republican paradigm. That's the bullshit. And Yemi is really, if you listen to him, trying to get away from that paradigm. Because it's unhelpful to really solving real problems. Yeah, they wanted to play the Republican this, Republican that in Colorado Springs. And all of that conservatism and Republican policies that are supposed to be so great, the residents in Colorado Springs are like, nah. Yeah, people can travel, people can move, people can talk with other family members. People see what's going on. I guarantee you, if I was to come tomorrow to Colorado Springs, I would see people living on the street in tents, just like I see here, just like any other place you go to in this country. And people are trying to pretend as though it started during COVID. But real people know that's a lie too. These problems have been persistent for a very, very long time in this country. So no, Republicans weren't able to bamboozle their own people in Colorado Springs, which bodes very poorly for them in 2024, I might add. Because this is the big thing they're running on, public safety. Crime is so out of control in the cities. But people don't feel any safer in the suburbs. The rural areas. People are more spread out. So they seldom come into contact with each other. But in rural areas, crime is up, homicides are up there too. It's up everywhere, you all. It's up everywhere. And just saying mental health, mental health, mental health, which is the Republican talking point, but not wanting to take steps to address or actually detail what they would actually do concerning mental health. I mean, it's great. Do you want us to give you a star, a sticker? You know, for so long they didn't even acknowledge that mental health was a thing in our society. You were a wackadoodle if you said mental health was the issue for why people behave the way they do. There's no such thing as mental health. Now, fast forward 2023, it's conservative and Republicans' favorite word, mental health. So it went from being some socialist fairy tale to now it's the #1 crisis in America. We don't know what to do about it, but it's a crisis. Right? Okay, cool beans. It's been a crisis, you all, for a long time. And they don't have any solutions, you all. You can forget that. Their solution in the 1980s was to cut funding for mental health. Yeah, one of their favorite presidents, the other actor, Ronald Reagan. Yeah, he got rid of all of the mental health treatment facilities in America. They have the nerve to ask, why are people with severe mental illness out in the general public? You really want that answer? Here goes. 1, 2, 3. Former President Ronald Reagan. He cut the funding because, you know, cutting funding for Republicans outside of funding to give tax cuts to the very wealthy in our country. Who needs mental health and psychiatric treatment facilities? Not us. Yeah, that's why people are out in the general public. Because the facilities no longer exist. And the few that do, you don't want to fund them as conservatives. This is a fact. So we can start there. Maybe assessing the problem. Maybe funding facilities for people with severe mental illness who are a danger to themselves and to others. Everyone with mental illness is not a danger to themselves or to anyone else. But we all know there are some people that are dangerous to themselves and others. Now we can talk about the facilities and how they were managed and run in this country. Not well, but they were never funded adequately. Never. Even when we had them, they weren't funded adequately. Poor staffing and training. So we would hear about the stories of abuses that were taking place. And conservatives would use that as a justification to say, hey, we ought to scrap the whole thing. Yeah, go back and look. Check the record. So people are just not buying it anymore. The conservative bullshit. The compassionate conservatism. Whilst you criminalize living in your car, in public or private land. Yeah, they made it a felony in Tennessee to camp out. Yeah, you'll get multiple years in prison. If you live in a tent, you live in your car, an RV. So we have a huge influx of RVs coming in. Yeah, huge influx. Who wants to bet that a lot of those people are coming in from different states? Republican-controlled states in the South. Who wants to take a bet? I already know the answer. Yeah, some of them are coming from California and other states, but they're coming from all over you all. Because they criminalized it in the South. And then they say, look at the problem out west. Yeah. You mean your problem? Our problem, by extension, is America's problem. See, that's what conservatives never understood. They're like unhoused people in Los Angeles. Yeah, for years they went on pretending that unhoused people didn't exist in their states. And the problem grew worse and worse and worse. Then they finally realized, oh, we have a problem too in our states. Let's just criminalize them and get them to go somewhere else. One of those sanctuary places. Not the church. The state. Think about that. The state and the city is a sanctuary. Got thousands of churches. They ain't housing nobody. I guess all of them are waiting for you. So Colorado Springs, y'all. Very interesting. Very interesting indeed. And you know they say uneasy is the head that bears the crown. Mayor-elect Yemi. I'm telling you. He's got his work cut out for him in Colorado Springs. Because it's solidly conservative. And even if he wants to make positive, transformational changes that are going to benefit all of Colorado Springs, he's going to get tremendous pushback, obstruction from the governance as is currently constructed in Colorado Springs. Yeah, he's going to give a lesson in obstruction firsthand. Because people think it's easy to govern. No. Even when you win, sometimes it's like feeling like you lost when you start governing. So I want to wish him the best, but I already know you all. Public safety, that's huge. A lot of the residents in Colorado Springs were saying that there's been quite a bit of racism on the Colorado Springs Police Department. And it's been swept under the rug by Republican administration after Republican administration after Republican administration. And people of color in Colorado Springs have been complaining about this issue for decades. And they've really been gaslit by their government. Yeah, they try to gaslight. They're like, oh, it's not really happening. That person unalived by the police in Colorado Springs. Well, this is the reason why. It's justified. Everything. Yeah, they just sweep it under the rug. That was in large part why Yemi won. Because people in Colorado Springs, a good number of them, they're woke. Yeah. A lot of people are waking up to what's really been going on. Yeah. So good luck, Colorado Springs. You all have your work cut out for you. You've been under conservative occupation for 45 years. Yeah, that's a long time. But our nation really has been under conservative occupation for 400 years. People say, oh, we've had liberal presidents. No, y'all, we have not had liberal presidents. We've had centrist, moderate, and slightly progressive presidents. The slightly progressive president is the most recent president, the current president. Yeah, I would say this current president, President Biden, is the most progressive president this country has ever had. And he's slightly progressive, y'all. Because we've been under conservative occupation. They've been running the show. Cities don't call the shots. Stop it. States do. And states don't call the shots. The federal government does. And the president doesn't call the shots, y'all. The legislative branch pays the bill. Apparently now they don't want to pay their debts. Go figure. I'm really rooting for Colorado Springs. I really am. It's a good story. Someone who immigrated to this country in 2010. So less than 2 decades to move to a country and become a mayor in a major city. Establish multiple businesses in the community you live in. It's a story of success. An immigrant having success. We hear so much about what immigrants take from the country. They're taking our jobs. They're taking our lives in certain cases. But we never hear about what immigrants give to this country. Yeah, so it's a good story in terms of immigration. Very good story. It's a success story. Now, for all the people who rag on immigrants, especially conservatives, here's an immigrant that started businesses in his community where he lived. successful businesses. And now, after 13 years being in this country, is a mayor of a major conservative city. Yeah, that's a hugely and tremendous success story. I hope we'll keep all amplifying it. I hope we'll all root for Yemi Mobolade's success. But I know you all what he's up against. I think he knows what he's up against too. I really do. But it's Colorado Springs. It's changing slightly, you all. And this is a trend all across the country. Young people are changing this nation. They're making it more progressive. They're trying to create a better America for all of us. But they're facing fierce resistance. You know, people say the whole platitude of change is scary. To a lot of people, yes, it is. To a lot of people, having an immigrant, Nigerian-born person as their mayor in Colorado Springs is scary. It's frightening. So he has to contend with just that fact alone. Some people will never root for his success just because of that. Yeah. And some people won't and will pretend as though they are. Yeah, that's a reality too. I guarantee you, all of the conservatives that are smiling in Yemi's face, man, those are the real backstabbers. They smile in your face. All the time they want to take your place. The backstabbers. Well, the fact that Colorado Springs overthrew 45 years of conservative occupation is cause for celebration. Congratulations, you all. You took step 1. Step 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and beyond are much more difficult. Stick with Yemi. It's gonna get tough, it's gonna get nasty, it's gonna get ugly. See, that's another thing. People want it to be like microwave popcorn. You put it in the microwave and it's done in 30 seconds. He's not going to be able to fix the long, entrenched, systemic problems of Colorado Springs in 6 months, in a year, 3 years. Just like it took time to dig the hole, create the problem, it takes time to fix a problem. Same is true with our current president. Yeah, I heard that bullshit. I guess we'll never build back better now. As though, I guess, everything was supposed to magically just repair itself after the complete and utter death and destruction that this current president's predecessor left it. Yeah, he called for death and destruction. I'm like, that's what we had for 4 years. Yeah, Colorado Springs is really there's a lot to take away from that. Yeah, there's a lot to take away from that election. There's a lot. Huge takeaway from me is people are just not buying the conservative bullshit anymore. They're like, yeah, New York has got its problems. And so do we. So why are you on the news every 2 minutes talking about how bad it is in New York? Pretending like we don't have problems in Colorado Springs. Why are you pretending that New York has an unhoused crisis when we don't have an unhoused crisis in Colorado Springs? Why are you pretending that Chicago has a huge homicide rate? Like we don't have a huge homicide rate in Colorado Springs. See, people started putting 2 and 2 together. And that's the main thing conservatives don't want you to do. They want to continue the con. That somehow their policies lead to better outcomes when we see the same across the board. Yeah, they'll talk about liberal, big Democrat-run cities. Colorado Springs is a big conservative-run city. The problem is worse per capita. That's according to the data. You know what they say? Men lie, women lie. Numbers. They don't lie. The highest homicide rate since 1985 occurred in Colorado Springs, 2022. Yemi has not been sworn in as mayor. But watch the trick. They're going to say, now that you're mayor, we have a huge homicide rate. We have a police brutality issue. We have businesses going under. All the things that were happening on their watch, they're going to say it's Yemi's fault. Yeah, I know this game. I know that game well. You all good luck out there in Colorado Springs. And stay safe. It's gonna get juicy.